Hey man, thanks for sending this through here. Just great work. Really, really happy with, for the most part, your line through turn nine. A lot of your lines are looking pretty spot on here, which is awesome. We're going to continue to refine the details, right? And let's continue to work our way faster and faster and faster. So coming up over the hill here onto turn two, I want to talk about the brake zone into turn two. So what I want you doing here is focus here on the friction circle. And what you're going to see is you're starting your brake zone here, and then watch how you kind of start to hold, let's say at 50% brake pressure. It kind of sustains, and then you go up to your peak brake pressure. So what's happening here is your brake zone looks something like this, right? What we want our brake zone to look like here is much more like that. So we've got to ramp our way up to peak brake pressure a little quicker, right? And I'm still like, I'm okay with it doesn't need to be instantaneous, right? The car's a little upset here. But once you get right about here, your hands are straight, we should be at peak brake pressure before we get to that two board, right? And then when we start to get to the one board where you're increasing brake pressure, this is where I'm starting to really release off of brake pressure, right? And then when you get to this yellow cone here or curve, it should almost be like your big toes just resting on the brake pedal. It's less about slowing the car down and more about just kind of uh, keeping car direction, keeping a little bit of weight on the front end, right? The second part of this is when we do that right, you're going to have just a couple mile an hour more apex speed. And I want the car just to take us another third of a car width wider. So it's just a tick wider, but those left side tires should just be like a little bit closer to this black patch here. Not on it, but I just want it to be a little wider. That's going to set you up a little bit better. And then throttle application points, great. You could just be a little bit more aggressive here and let the car really use a little bit more track, right? Like you should be using a little bit of this curve here. And that's really it. Into turn three, let's take a look here. Where are you actually braking? Just after the two board. I would say you could probably challenge the turn three brake zone a little bit more, brake a little bit later. The second part of this is your turning point is great, the last red stripe. So you're turning in at the right point, but you're early apexing, right? You've apex now, where I want to apex more like just before the start of this yellow curve. And if you actually look at the curve here, oops, you'll see how where you're coming across the curb, look how white it looks, and you can see how the rubber's really starting there. So you see we're just inside of it. So if you're turning in at the right point, but apexing too early, it means we need to slow our hand down. So let's really work on just being a little bit more patient, slowing that hand down, so not apex too early. So when you get to here, you can really start to unwind the steering wheel. And if you look at your minimum speed here, you see how you kind of have that minimum speed coming too late, right? Like we should be aggressively adding throttle now. And then you also kind of get stuck a little bit there because of that. Similar note in turn four. Your turning point's good. Here, your apex point is good. This is great. Now, this is where I should see minimum speed, right? This is where we should start to accelerate out of here. Watch your mile an hour. Now, take for granted, I know there's McLaren behind us, and maybe that distracted us a little bit this lap, but just watch. This is where the minimum speed should be 76, 75, 74. Look how late that minimum speed comes. So I'd rather see you slow it down a little bit more on entry. Maybe you're at 75 miles an hour here. Maybe you're even at 74 miles an hour here, but aggressively picking up throttle. So when you get to this point, you're at 77, 78. Here you're at 80, right? And you're carrying that momentum down to turn five. Okay. Now, turn five, we had a little bit of compromise here with being passed. So I think we were not really as aggressive at corner exit as we normally are. This is where I should start to see you aggressively get on throttle and kind of use the line that McLaren's using. I just think we were, letting them go, right? So not too many notes there. Into turn six, um, ultimately we can break a little later and a little harder here. We're just a little light. This should be like a six or a seven pedal. So where you're starting to break here, I think you can work your way closer to the two board with more brake pressure, right? So a little later, but a little harder. And then your turning point is solid, but yeah, this actually looks pretty damn good. I'm happy. Other than that, in turn six, I'm pretty happy here. Similar into the corkscrew, I think there's more brake pressure available. You can't really brake a lot deeper than this, right? Maybe you can challenge it a little bit more, but there's just overall pretty light on the brakes where I think you can probably be a little later, a little harder. This looks good to me. Good acceleration out of here. I'm happy with that. Now, the one thing here is out of the second apex of the corkscrew, you're turning in at the correct point. Whoops, didn't actually mean to do that. But you kind of just have straight hands there, right? You can let the car eat up more track here and still work it back to mid road, right? So it's a good indication to us that we're over slowing through the middle part of the corkscrew. So one thing that we can try here is we can try turning this a little later. You're kind of starting your turning point now, and it's just about waiting to this last red stripe and then trying to work on when you get to this point in the corner, really starting to, if you turn a little later, you're going to have the car a little bit more looking kind of towards the McLaren. You're going to be looking a little bit more in this direction and really trying to be able to, right about now, this is where I want aggressive acceleration. So you're just that car length late, and then that's going to help you have more speed here. That's going to push you a little bit wider, but you have plenty of time to work it back to the middle part of the road here. And then the line through turn 9 for right now looks pretty solid. We'll come back and focus on a little bit more through turn 9 later, but for right now, it looks good. Into turn 10, similar note on our minimum speed as in 3 and 4 as well. Turning point's great. Your line's great. But this is where I should see that minimum speed come. This is where I want to see acceleration come. Watch your minimum speed. 68, right? Like you're still at your minimum speed as you get out to the exit curve. So if anything, we should slow it down a little bit more and then really work on that acceleration zone out of here, right? So you could probably like you're braking pretty damn light into turn 10 where should be like a little stab of the brakes. So let's work backwards, right? Like into 3, into 4, into 10, and even into 11, you'll see our acceleration zones what's hurting, where those are all exit speed corners. We want to first nail, this is where I want initial throttle application point, and I want to be back to full throttle by about here. Let's get that right. Back up your entry, over slow, it's fine. Let's get this right and then work on entry speed. And you want to work on more and more entry speed until you're either late to throttle or late back to full throttle. And now we're over the limit, back it back down a little bit, right? And then into turn 11, we're not braking hard enough. Like this should be threshold braking in here, and we're like at 50% brake pressure. So I want a lot more brake pressure into turn 11. And then because you're not braking hard enough, we end up sort of bringing in too much speed, not getting enough weight on the front end. We miss our apex point, right? We want to be in that curve. This is where I should start to see acceleration. And we're just a little late on aggressive acceleration because of that. So there's more brake pressure, you get more weight on the front end, get a little bit more rotation, and get that drive out of here. Okay, those are the major notes. Let me know if you have any questions at all, and let's keep rocking it, man.